Hello everyone. Welcome back to Footy from the West Coast. Reaching out to you after our loss on Friday night against the Adelaide Crows, 74-99 it ended up being. It was another one of those games that was very common for our season, really getting absolutely crushed out of the gate and then sort of fighting back, fighting bait, but never being able to actually make up that differential that we lost in the first quarter, which, again, it's happened time and time again. And hopefully with time and experience that these young kids are getting, these sorts of things won't happen, but it's not really the kids that are the issue here, and we'll move on to that later on. But we, again, like I said, we fought back in the second, third, but couldn't break out that 5-goal gap, which was really frustrating, and really stuck it to them in the fourth. Why can't we play like that? Again, that's all above the shoulders, I would say. You don't want to be the team that plays when there's nothing to lose, because you're never going to win games consistently that way. But again, I'd say that has a lot to do with our maturity, and we had our chances throughout the second and third too. We had periods of dominance like we have been in multiple games, but it's just that polish, that execution, we just can't seem to get right. We've got numbers in the middle of the ground, just needs a couple handballs, three-man weave sort of operation, but we just butcher one of those disposals, or we butcher the kick inside 50 or the transitional kick, and story of our night, Adelaide just go ping, 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 straight back over our heads. And, our defence looks incredibly mediocre at times, and it's not always because of who they are, because you wouldn't be expecting the ball to slingshot back like that. And they look out of place when it happens, because, we've got the run of the green, and then bam, something will just happen, a horrible disposal handball, and it just goes. And that was really frustrating. And also it led into the fourth, where again, that lack of polish and execution, we were absolutely dominant. We had them for 25 out of 30 minutes there. That first 10-minute period, we were all over them, but we just can't finish. And again, that's been the story of the season thus far. It's nice to be in games, but we have to start stronger and stay with teams for longer and from the start. You don't want to lose hope in those, in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and then fight back at the end. It's just not the way to play. Clearances, we got absolutely butchered in the first three quarters out of the middle. We just couldn't do much there, and Minnie just, it really irked me last night with some of the coaching decisions. It got better, but we kept on. It was Yo Graham Kelly or Yo Reed Kelly for almost all of the night, and it just wasn't working. Why are we persisting with something that isn't working? When we finally moved Yo out, third and fourth quarter, funnily enough, the game turned. And just needing a bit more dynamism in there, I think. We'll move on to it a bit later, but we just need to get on the front foot more when things aren't working. And, in the first quarter at one point, we had Jack Williams and Job Shanahan both, and Tommy Cole both back behind the ball, and then it just meant we couldn't do anything moving forward, probably out of necessity to get to quarter time. But again, just being in those situations is really, really frustrating. But when things worked out later in that fourth quarter, it all came down to our pressure. We were first to the ball, and if we weren't first to the ball, we were hunting. We were in their face. We didn't give them an inch. And that's absolutely how you need to play Adelaide, because that's what they do to opposing teams very often, but us needing to do it to them. Don't let everything be easy. We are not the best with the ball, clearly. Time and time again, we butcher the ball, make terrible decisions. But what we can do, and when we've won games, is when we've increased that pressure rating, right? When we're at the 200s and have been consistently over the year, that's when we play our best footy. We're not going to be perfect, slicing the ball through the corridor, kick mark. We can't do that. We're not good enough with our disposal to be able to do that. But we just have to, keep doing that. Keep doing that. That's what our energy needs to be from the start. So I don't know if it's something to do with the pre-match routine that's just not working and not amping the guys up to where they need to be. But I think that's the key for us moving forward. And more of these tackling types, that we've brought in. It's a shame about Dev Robertson, but, I think he would be so good this year, but we might have found another player who has a few more up on him. Fancy that. And we'll actually move into that now. Talking about the good. Ollie Franco, almost called him Josh then, just like his old man. Ollie Franco was absolutely incredible, and everybody's singing his praises, and rightfully so. 10 tackles on debut. 11 out of his 18 possessions were contested, and he took players on and showed his strength. The amount of times in the first 3 quarters when he get the ball in tight, a contested possession, someone's already tackling, and he dumped them with his strength and get underneath their arms, burrow out, and shoot out with that acceleration. That's what I loved. He wasn't afraid at all. He knew he could use his strength. I think about, I know Harley and him are not the same player, but it's that youthful exuberance where they're confident within themselves and their body, and they know they can take people on. Bo Allen's been doing it a bit as well, just showing those things, taking the game on and pushing out. You've got to have people that are doing that. And, other players like Jack Graham and Dev Robertson who do a similar role, they don't have that speed and acceleration that Franco does, which is really, really exciting. And keep in mind, 18 disposals, 10 tackles on debut. This is 61% game time, the lowest on the ground for both teams. So that's really exciting. We knew what we'd get from Ollie, and after seeing it in the WAFL for the last 4 weeks, and seeing it at AFL level is brilliant. Can you imagine if he had, a standard 80% game time, even the 70, he's probably looking at, 22, 23 disposals, which would be one of our high disposal winners, and he already was, and even more tackles and impact in the game. I really did feel like when he wasn't in the game, he had a bit of a slower patch in that third quarter, and obviously he was off for a lot of the game. He was off for 40% of the game, right? That's a long time. We didn't have that speed. We didn't have that attack on the opposition. And yeah, I'm really thrilled with him, and hope he can continue on. And hopefully he's not like the rest of the mid-season pickups who seem to get here and then fall off a little bit. Also wanted to talk about Marcus Herbert. I think, again, he takes the game on, and I love that. Very, very confident in himself. The disco for a bloody reason. He really does take everyone. He's going this way. He's going that way. He's giving people moves, and it works. It gets us moving forward. And just like Tommy McCarthy, we're moving forward with the ball. We're not going backwards like we have been, in the last 4 or 5 years with Adam Simpson. And I think, and again, we're not good enough to play that kick mark, that disposal footy. We don't want to do that. So having more of these players is really fantastic. I would love for him to get a go in the middle. I think, his shake and bake ability, his composure is something that would look really nice, maybe taking over for, an Elliot Yeo, a rotation with Tim Kelly, with Franco. I think there's definitely something there, absolutely, and he's coming from a good system, being that Geelong VFL system. He won a BNF there, and Geelong's a great program. I think there's definitely something there. I thought Joe Shanahan was great. It wasn't so much his marking this week. He could have taken a few more clunks and didn't, but he gets there every time. But I thought it was more the ground level work that he showed this week. Job's got secret shady pace, and he's hungrier for the opposition than you'd think looking at him. He looks a bit calm and composed, almost always too composed sometimes, I find, for a young kid. But he's got that hunger to lay that tackle, and I do love that, and that follow-up work, which I love about him. He's always going to bring the ball to the ground, and he does have some moves when he's on the ground. So, and the 3 goals, I think he's, at 21 for the year now, which is just fantastic. And, following on from his form at the back end of last year when he got his debut, he's going to be a fantastic player moving forward, and I can't wait for that, that signing announcement. I thought Rhett Bazzo played well. Again, it looked scary at the start, and Bazzo's had some scary games, especially from against Adelaide in the past. But he got moved off Fogg, and thank God Phil Thorpe wasn't playing, but still he got moved off Fogg, and then got really composed, started winning his one-on-ones. He takes a lot of marks, does Bazzo, a lot of intercepting marks. He'll come over and do that sort of Jeremy McGovern role where he'll intercept and he'll move off his man to go to the dangerous space and affect a disposal or something like that. And he's had a great little block now. Really exciting to see him. With Edward, I think Edwards, Jimby, Bazzo would be the three talls moving forward if that's the way we want to go. And he's been far more consistent than I thought he would be. He's at about 55 AFL games now. He's starting to show why he got drafted. I just want to finish off with Beau Allen. Now I know Beau can fade out of games. I hear that commentary a lot. And whilst I agree with you, I think it's really important to remind ourselves Beau plays on the wing in a team that's terrible with the ball and in transition. So it would be really hard to stay consistently in games on a wing at West Coast. And I think we've seen that over the last 4 or 5 years. That's not a position where you're going to get, your 20, 25 week in, week out. But what we do get from Beau is some of the hardest forward and back running I've ever seen. So many clips from last night's game are him absolutely fucking launching himself to get back and defend, absolutely launching himself to give us an option moving forward when we haven't shifted our forwards back from the transition when they've come up to the contest, right? He moves. He's got that electric pace and that great strength. Whenever he shows those moments, it's generally in tight and breaks away with that speed, will push someone off and go. Why Mini just hasn't, it just drives me insane. Why this guy doesn't get some on-ball time, especially in a game like last night when we had Yowie, 7 touches for the whole game. Like, why is Beau not getting shifted in there? Or Willem Dersma? We got to use this young talent. It just feels like we're playing a bit out of position. Now to move on to the not-so-goods, the bads, the negatives, I have to start with my man Liam Duggan, who you guys know I'm a huge fan of. 58.3% disposal efficiency and 10 turnovers when 21 of your possessions are uncontested. That is unforgivable. We just cannot have that. This isn't a captain, no less. And, I've said it before and I've said it again. Unfortunately, nothing's going to change with this club until he's out of the team in the waffle, or at least not given the captaincy. Maybe that's really, taking a lot on him, and maybe we need to remove that from him if it's, taking away from his game, because, he always did the old dump kick, and his disposal was never wonderful, but it was far better than what it is now, and his mind just seems to be an ooze at the moment. Like, I know everyone talks about it, but that, like, why he's kicking out when he gets the lasso free kick in the last quarter when we're really pushing, and he kicks it into the man of the mark using his right foot, which is his opposite foot, and gets the ball back and then fucking dumps it out in the full. Like, how are you doing that? It's okay to make mistakes. That's okay, We're all human. But 10 turnovers. You cannot have that as a captain of a football club. Consistency is what makes a good captain. Duggan's consistency and his consistent behaviours is making horrible mistakes, dump kicks, and inefficient disposal. He'll do 1 or 2 nice defensive efforts and then make 5 horrid decisions or disposals. And we just can't have that, And I feel, obviously, we all rag on Duggo, as a community. He's like the pile-on guy, like Tommy Cole. But do you think we're doing it for fun? Do you think we're doing it out of nowhere for no reason? Like, it's because we can't handle that. And imagine being a young Will Dersma, a young Harley Reid, a young Beau Allen, Cooper Duff Tytler, these young stars with immense talent, and seeing other guys have to make way and move around, like Josh Lindsay because Duggan's in the team because he's got that big C on his back and just keeps getting rewarded for, not playing. It's just, it'd be hard to listen to Duggo's speeches when he's kicking it to the opponent half the time. And it's just deflating for your captain to keep having these performances, and it's not a once-off. But enough about Liam. I don't want to dump on him too hard, but I'm just sick of it. Coaching, Mini. Frustrating performance from Mini last night. It's just playing the players out of position. It's all the young kids getting played out of position. I mean, even saw Duggan on the fucking wing at one point. Sorry, Liam, but that's not your fault. You got put there, but it's because we don't want you near the ball. But that's coaching, right? I can't deal with Willem Dersma down forward at the start of the game. What is this experiment? What are we doing here? And notice how, the last few weeks and his worst weeks, when he isn't around the ball, and when he was put back late, he shows why he was the number one pick. With that amazing acceleration, bursting away with the ball. He's get those fucking giraffe arms, gets the ball, blocks an opponent from getting a mark in the forward 50, and then he can just go. But he needs to be near the ball to do that. And he's just not getting put near the ball. He was the number one draft pick. That's sort of his go. We know he can play down forward, but we need to get the ball down there first with a bit of talent, a bit of class, and he's one to do that. And, with Yowie having such a dirty night, and, something looks up with Yowie, people keep calling time. I think he's played more games this year than I thought he would. He probably just needs rest, and the body's sore. He's got another year on that deal. But, when Yoey's got like 7 touches to full time, but how have we let a game go on with him having so many centre ball ups with that disposal count and not having an impact at all, and, having Dersman down forward or on the wing with Bo Allen? It's just, I'm not really understanding that. And we've got some trauma from Simo as Eagles fans. Let's be honest. Why are we rewarding experience and not performance? That genuinely concerns me. I'm asking you, Mini, make a statement. Make a statement. You did it with Ryan Marrick last week, and rightfully so. Absolutely. He's been soft for a few weeks, and, a few contests he just hasn't shown his best self, and, it worked. Funnily enough, Ryan Marrick had 8 tackles in the waffle. I guarantee he's never done that at AFL level. But he showed that he listened. You probably clipped him. Players can't be given freebies, especially not in the AFL, and especially not when we've been as generationally bad as we have. We cannot reward experience. That is what made us hurt so bad in the Adam Simpson, towards the end of that Adam Simpson era, and made our development so slow as to us being, the worst modern team of all time and potentially team of all time win-loss wise. It's because we took so long to get the games into those young players to do that turnover that we had to do. And I just don't want to see us follow that same line of thinking. Duggan, Yowie, Coley. Coley's been all right, don't get me wrong, but is that really the person we want to put games into? He might not even get a contract next year. I know, experience helps or whatever. Not that I necessarily believe that. It's just that, the common rhetoric. You got to have some out there, sure, to direct the guys, but we can't have it being people that are not impacting, or when they're impacting, it's negative to us and helping the opposition. Of course, Liam Duggan's got highest disposal count on the team. The opponent don't give two rats if he's got the ball, because it's going to go right back to them. He's their next, additional player, right? Yowie couldn't get anything going last night, but we're wasting valuable centre time and time where the ball is on a player like that, when I don't know why we push that sort of thing and try and an hour's gone. Let's make it happen. It'll happen. Don't worry. It'll turn around. Yowie will turn around. It's just we don't have the time for that. I'm afraid, and I think as fans we're just a bit fed up with that. We just don't want to see that cycle happen again, because it's very frustrating for us, and we want to see the kids. We want to see the excitement, because that's when we play well, is when we're hunting the opponents down. We're showing that speed. We're showing that talent. It's not all coming out in the right way, with disposal or cleanliness or anything like that. But when we genuinely have a go and go hard at it, that's when we show what we're capable of. And great to keep the margin to only 25 points in the end. I'll finish off with, I think that was great. At the start, it looked like it could be a 20-goal game. It really did. But, the guys stuck in a bit. We showed a bit more, intent on the game. But we've got to figure out how to sort that out, sort those slow starts out. Change something in the pre-game routine, I think, is absolutely something that needs to happen now, because it's become too consistent for it not to be something genuinely going on that's affecting the guys. But other than that, excited for next week. Interesting to see what the teams will do. Obviously, the Waffle Boys had a win last night, a really good win. Champion and Johnston played really well with 3 goals each. I know a lot of people talking about Finn McRae and Schonberg. They were okay. They got a lot of the ball, Clay Hall too, and they were okay. Schonberg probably the better of the 3 there. And Schonberg's shown a little bit, at Waffle level. And Elijah Hewitt, I think it was 8 tackles in the end, showed a lot. With this week, with Yowie, I would say needing a week off. Don't let him travel, give him that block at home to recover and things like that. I'd love to see Elijah come in, but play the role he's meant to play. Put him in the middle. I like the idea of a Franco, Reed, Hewitt combo in the middle. I think that's got that amazing level of dynamism with the speed and the power, but it's also got that defensive intent of a Franco, laying tackles, not letting the ball just pop out. I think there's something to that, even balancing that with an Allen. I definitely think, and a Herbert as well, maybe to rotate with Franco. I think there's something there and something we can do, and I'd love to see Johnston or Champion come in for Cole. Not that Cole did anything, abhorrent last night or anything like that, but I'd like to see the games into the kids and reward that level they were at last night. And Johnston's been okay at AFL level, and it's the same role as what a Coley would be doing, and he showed some great intent last night. He's defensively and offensively laying tackles like nothing else. That's more of what we want to see, and hopefully we see a bit like that moving forward. But that's all it from me, from Footy from the West Coast. I hope everyone has a great night and a great rest of your weekend watching the footy. Take care.